Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Welcome back to the second session of Online Diplomatic Course 2021, a multilateral conference training. I would like to welcome our speaker, Mr. Ahsanul Habib, SIP, MPP, as the Director for Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic Indonesia. And I would like to also welcome Mrs. Vienna Adza, Functional Staff at a diplomat at Civil and Political Rights Directorate for Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. And I would like to welcome all of fellow lecturers and colleagues of Department of International Relations at Universitas Islam Indonesia, and also my beloved students of Department of International Relations, Universitas Islam Indonesia. And my name is Muhammad Rizky Utama, and I will be the session chair for this second session. In previous session, we have discussed about the issues on Myanmar, a very important material for tomorrow's practice in multilateral diplomacy. And in this session, we will be trained on multilateral conference by Mr. Ahsanul Habib, SIP, MPP. Before I invite him to all of you, I would like to read his CV for you. So Mr. Ahsanul Habib, now he is the Director for Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He was graduated from Pajajaran University, majoring International Relations Studies, and continued his study in Policy Studies, Young Leaders Program, a Graduate Institute for Policy Studies in Tokyo. He was, before today's position, he was the Deputy Director for North and Central American Affairs from 2012 to 2015. And ASEAN Political and Security Affairs Directorate in Jakarta from 2006 to 2008. Of course, he had a lot of different experiences, such as Minister Counselor or Political Coordinator, Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the United Nations in New York, United States, from 2015 to 2018, and then Counselor or Human Rights and Humanitarian Officer, Permanent Mission of the Republic of Indonesia to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva, Switzerland from 2008 to 2012. And second Secretary for Political and Information, Indonesian Embassy in Pyongyang, North Korea from 1999 to 2004. Another experience is also Political Coordinator, covering human rights issues, decolonization, counterterrorism, Palestine, and legal issues in New York from 2015 to 2018. Negotiator to country-specific resolutions at the UNGA in New York from 2015 to 2018. Person in charge in the Indonesia-US Strategic and Comprehensive Partnership from 2012 to 2015. Humanitarian disaster prevention and reduction, refugee and irregular migration, labor, global health and foreign policy issues in Geneva from 2008 to 2012. Indonesian delegation, ASEAN member states negotiations of the ASEAN Charter, high-level task force of ASEAN Charter from 2007 to 2008. An Indonesian delegation ASEAN member states negotiations of the negotiation to the ASEAN Convention on the counterterrorism in 2007 and ASEAN Declaration on the protection of the migrant workers and their families in 2007. So without further ado, please welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Ahsanul Habib, SIP MPP. Mr. Ahsanul Habib, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you very much. Apologize for too early to greet all of you, but again, thank you very much and good afternoon, Chair, Moderator, and also other colleagues in this meeting room. It is, of course, a great honor for me and my colleagues, my team. I have Mrs. Vienna and Mr. Noel in this session. And of course, this is also a great opportunity for me to share with you what the Indonesian government participation, as well as the situation and the setting of the General Assembly procedures as well as practices. And of course, this this model of United Nations practices is an excellent platform for all participants, particularly to the students, to learn on how diplomatic works and how also the countries, the member state is joining on the negotiation, trying to reach an agreement as well as consensus on many issues, particularly on the issue that has a very relevant and significant interest to all those countries, including, of course, Indonesia. Through this presentation, I have been requested by the organizing committee to share with you on many issues regarding the practices at the United Nations negotiation as well as rule of procedures and how the bodies in the United Nations is working, particularly to reach and to discuss agenda, consensus, agreement, as well as on how we proceed the method of work of the United Nations. I have, of course, already prepared for you the presentations, and this presentation will be highlighted at the UN General Assembly and also the introduction to the characteristic and mandates, the proceeding, the way that member countries is drafting the resolutions, as well as at the last part, of course, I'd like also to highlight the certain elements that is considered as the qualities that we need for diplomats to join with the diplomatic life, as well as to represent countries in many negotiations, as well as, again, to create an agreement among member states at the multilateral context, particularly at the United Nations. I'd like to start my presentation by introducing the main bodies, main principal organs of the United Nations, which is the General Assembly. As you know that and when we talk about United Nations, and also it is mentioned in the United Nations Charter that United Nations has 6 principal organs that are first the General Assembly, and then the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, Trusteeship Council, And last one is the International Court of Justice as well as the United Nations Secretariat. If you look at to this, all six principal organs, of course, you may have burning questions in which one is the main body and also the principal organization that has important contribution to the current global setting. And the General Assembly, of course, this is the one that is more familiar, more popular, and also represented by all 193 member states. And the rule of procedures of the UNGA has also stated that each one country has one vote in the GA. And if we look at also to the principal organs, you may have also a question, another question on where is the trusteeship council. In fact, the trusteeship council is not, let's say, it's not anymore um, exists in terms of doing the practices, the contribution, the meetings, and other things. It's more on the symbolic organ of the GA as the part of the history of the establishment of the United Nations after the World War II with regard to settle the issue of unadministered territory or the territory that has been colonialized by the other country. And if you look at also to the structure of this UN principal organs, I'd like to to remind you that it is also represent the three main business of the United Nations. First, if you look at to the General Assembly with its subsidiary body and organs, it consists a lot of bodies that is that has a mandate to pursue social justice. Second one, the ECOSOC, it's a body that pursue for development, economics, and human well-being. The third one is the Security Council. It's a body that pursue for peace and security of the global community. This is actually what we have now during the discussion, the life of the diplomatic and multilateral issues, as well as if we go to the UN setting. And I'd like also then to mention about the United Nations General Assembly. The UN General Assembly, or in Bahasa Indonesia, we call it as SMU PBB, or Sidang Majelis Umum PBB. And in the diplomatic practice in New York and in Geneva, we usually refers as the GA. We are not pronounce it as complete as probably in the text, but for the more simple and easy to remember that we call it as GA or General Assembly. GA is the central position of the function of chief deliberative policymaking and representative organ of the United Nations, and it also has a role to process of standard setting and codification of international law. It provides a unique forum for multilateral discussion of the full spectrum of international issues covered by the Charter. So in that sense, GA is considered as the most wide represented organ of the United Nations. And you in this case, probably you may have also another thinking. So what is the position of the Security Council? Security Council, in fact, is not representing all countries. It's only represented by the region, rotated by the election, with 5 countries has a position as permanent seat in the council, which is also sometimes some countries also uh, um, uh, thinks that the Security Council is not democratically elected composition and also position in the UN setting, which is also becoming a debate on how we can reform the Security Council. And then the GA is free to choose the way it conduct its business. That is what we call the constitution of the GA, by having a rule of procedures that is evolved and need to be adapted sometimes with the dynamics of the recent global development. On the recent years and over the years, the GA has granted itself many exceptions to establish rules. Sometimes it's becoming a very interesting discussions in the UN if we discuss about the application and the definition, the scope of the rule of procedures whenever it faces a lot of current issue, such as in Myanmar issue, in Rohingya, in Syria, Libya, as well as other provisions in the charter vis-a-vis the rules of procedures and the real situation on the ground. To the next slide. And now, therefore, I will introduce you to the mandate of the GA. Some of the UNGA mandates are to consider and make recommendation on the general principles of cooperation for maintaining international peace and security, including disarmament. Initiate studies and make recommendations to promote international political cooperation, the development and codification of international law, the realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms, and international collaboration in the economic, social, humanitarian, cultural, educational, and health fields. And the GA also has a mandate to make recommendation for the peaceful settlement and sorry, let me, okay. And it has a recommendation to the peaceful settlement of any situation that may impair friendly relations among countries. UNGA and its president, which also elected in every year, has 21 vice president. President of the General Assembly, or PGA, is the chair, is the head of the GA. It started, for example, in September every year and will end in August the year after. The GA works through a plenary, 6 main committees, which also, of course, covers the issues under the GA, which are also very comprehensive and also complex agendas. It has also a general committee and credentials committee. I'd like also to raise the issue of a very interesting case during this year and last year regarding the credentials committee. Now, at the credentials committee, they have an issue whether to acknowledge or to legally accept the representative of the military regime of Myanmar, whether it has a legal standing to attend the meetings in GA settings, or we need to acknowledge the legal representative of the constitutional elected government led by the president and the state councillor of Aung San Suu Kyi. It is also a good point for the participant of the model of United Nations to think about this and also to discuss about the setting on the credential issue on tomorrow simulation. In addition, There are various subsidiary bodies such as boards, committees, commissions, and council that report, of course, to the plenary at the GA. Now, GA meetings. The General Assembly meets in regular annual sessions and in special sessions. The difference is that regular annual sessions opens on Tuesday on the third week of September and runs for 1 year. It is mentioned at the rules of procedures that every regular annual session will be started at the third week of September on Tuesday. So it's very unique. Tuesday is becoming the starting point of the regular session of the GA. And during the regular annual sessions, member countries will discuss various agenda as decided by member countries. The other session is the special session. It deals with one issue only and its agenda is very short. A special session of the GA can be convened either at the request of the Security Council or a majority of member states. So this is important, colleagues, because it's not a freewheeling or free flow intention of anyone to bring the proposal to one agenda in the GA special session. Because if we just open it for anyone to propose any agenda, the situation will be becoming so chaotic, it's unorganized, and sometimes it will be used to attack another country's interest or integrity and sovereignty. The other setting is formal and informal. We have formal and informal meetings that both the plenary and main committees, as well as working groups and ad hoc committees, can use these formal and informal meetings. Formal GA meetings, it is usually consider only the items on the GA agenda. The agenda, of course, has been adopted and proposed by member states. And the debates, the adoption of the resolution and decision, and elections always take place in formal meeting. So it's gonna be very official, it's formal, and it's based on the agreement by the member state. All formal GA meetings are governed by the GA rules of procedures. And again, I'd like to highlight the importance of rule of procedures, including for the participants of the model of the United Nations to learn about these rules of procedures. All formal GA meetings held during a session are numbered consecutively. In the model United Nations, this type of meeting are considered as moderated caucus. The other one is the informal GA meeting. Informal GA meetings are held for a variety of purposes, such as a briefing by the SecGen or the PGA, briefing by the other UN entities, interactions with civil society, thematic debates, consultations, and negotiations. Informal meetings are not governed by the GA rules of procedures, but are often guided by them. So participants at the informal can follow, and usually we agree to follow the rules of procedure of the GA. No decisions can be taken in for informal meetings. So in the MOON, this type of meeting are considered as unmoderated caucus. Therefore, I now turn to the other character and nature of the meetings of the GA, that is the open and closed meetings. In addition to being formal or informal, a GA meeting can be open, and we can also call it as public meeting, or closed, we call as the private meeting. All GA meetings are open unless decided otherwise. In recent years, formal meeting has always been open. Open meetings are open to everyone, meaning that the representative of member states and observers, UN entities, and civil society representatives, as well as members of the general public and the media. Attendance can be constrained by security measures and by seating availability. Open formal plenary meetings are webcasted and meeting records are available online. While the closed meetings are attended only by member states, observers, and invited participants. There are different levels of reception. A GA meeting is closed either by a provision in a GA resolution or by an oral decision. Some GA meetings, such as Secretary General briefings and consultation on Security Council reform, are usually traditionally closed meetings, and a formal decision to close them is not taken every time. To the next slide, I now will describe on how GA works. First, inclusion of the item in the GA agenda. At the beginning of the session, the GA establish and adopt their agenda. Most of the more than 170 items each year on the agenda are considered on a regular basis, and only a few new items are added or deleted each year. Mandated agenda are mentioned in the charter, the GA rules of procedures or GA resolutions establishing subsidiary bodies. Recurring agenda items have been called for in previous GA resolutions. A request for a Secretary General report is considered, and implicit request for the inclusion of the item in the agenda of a future session. New agenda items can be proposed by a member states, one of the other principal organs of the UN, or the Secretary General. Therefore, the opening. The adoption of the agenda opens all items for consideration. Items are usually closed by an oral decisions whenever their consideration has been completed. During the debate of the item, the meeting usually has one debate of each agenda item, either in the plenary or in a main committee. The general debate at the beginning of the GA session is usually the first debate of the session, and only attended and participated or represented by heads of government, head of state, head of government, and as well as sometimes represented by other high-level rank ministers of the member states, with the exception of the high-level meetings as the subsidiary meetings during the high-level week session. The debate on an agenda item is informed by all documents and report requested and submitted under that agenda item. So, colleagues, in this case, during the meeting, particularly at the high-level week where the head of government, head of states participated at the high-level week, the Secretariat of the GA will provide member state with all documents and report, journal, let's say also additional document that has relevance to the agenda item and also the debate at that item. So this is important for the participant to make sure that all document has already been provided by the Secretariat before the member state is joining the debate or the discussion on particular agenda. So in the debate, right before the debate takes place, the member state has to ensure that they have already registered as the speaker list, and if not, they have to contact the Secretariat and the secretaries of the plenary of main committee meeting to make sure that the country is listed at the list of speakers of the debate. No delegation makes more than one statement in the same debate, with the exception of explanation of vote and the right of reply for the taking adoptions of the decision and resolution. So, and in this case, what is right of reply? Right of reply, or we usually call it as ROR, is given to states to reply a statement to another member state. The ROR can also be requested in response to a statement made under the right of reply or an explanation of vote by other countries or other entities that attended then and give the statement during that debate. How the adoption of resolution and decision taken. The debate of an agenda item is usually followed by the adoption of resolution and decisions. GA resolution reflect the degree of intergovernmental agreement, the evolution of political ideas, and the state of global cooperation on a given topic. This section deals with the process leading to the adoption of resolution or decision. It involves drafting a text, tabling a draft resolution, and deciding or taking action on it. Various forms of consultations and negotiation take place during the process in an attempt to reach consensus or at least get as close as possible to it. GA resolutions reflect the views of the member states, policy recommendations, assign mandates to the UN Secretariat and subsidiary bodies of the GA, and decide on all questions regarding the UN budget. And of course, the last part is the closing of the item. In this case, the chair of the meeting has to make sure that there is no more intervention, there is no more question, and also there is no more agenda that left during the discussion before closing of the item. To the next slide, I would like to describe about negotiation and GA resolution making. Drafting a resolution text. Most draft resolutions are initially written by a member state. The member state initiating and drafting a resolution text is called the sponsor of the resolution or the main sponsor if there are co-sponsors. So it means that sometimes the resolution is not solely proposed by one country, by many countries, and also by group of countries. Each resolution consists of one long single sentence. In this example is the situations in Myanmar. It begins with the name of the main organ that is adopting the resolution. In this slide, we can see that the General Assembly. This is followed by several preambular paragraphs. These are not really paragraphs actually, but clauses in the sentence. And finally, the operative paragraph. This is the important part of the resolutions. It conveys what the conference has decided to do. It requires precise, clear language as it enhances political impact and facilitates implementation. Agreed language. What is agreed language? Agreed language refers to paragraphs, sentences, or expressions that are part of previously adopted resolutions or decisions. Agreed language is often the fallback position if no agreement on new text can be reached. So for you participants, for the member states, it is also important to make sure that you have already been learned and also studied the previous resolution and decision to make sure that you have also in your text and materials the previous agreed language for the fallback position if you cannot reach an agreement during the negotiation or discussion. I'd like now to go to the next slides on the how countries or member states tabling draft resolution and negotiation. After drafting the resolution and finding other main sponsor or co-sponsor, the draft resolution are ready to enter the tabling phase or negotiation. There are practices for consulting member states on a draft resolution or decision before formal adoption. Three basic models are: first, negotiations before tabling. The main sponsor consults member states and holds informal negotiation, usually by open invitation for member states to participate on the draft before tabling the best version possible. This allows for action to be taken immediately after the introduction of the document. Usually, it is officially put as L document. This is the normal practice in the plenary. In the main committees, draft decision, resolution or decision are usually tabled without prior consultations. And this is part of negotiations after we table the resolution. After the introduction of the document, informal negotiation take place, led by either the main sponsor or by a facilitator appointed by the chair of a main committee. PGA-led consultations. GA resolution can also mandate the PGA, the president of the GA, to lead consultations on a specific issue or on resolutions and decisions, such as an outcome document or the modalities for a high-level GA event. In such cases, the PGA appoints one or more permanent representatives as facilitators. If consensus is reached, the PGA can table the resolution or decision in his or her name. If no consensus is reached, a procedural decision is adopted, sometimes requesting further consultations at a future session of the GA. Countries then have to tabling the draft resolutions. Tabling is a technical term for formally submitting a draft resolution text to the GA. Only member states or the PGA can table draft resolutions. When a group of member states tables a resolution, it is usually done by the group's chair on behalf of the group. A draft resolution must be tabled under a specific agenda item. It is recommended that all draft resolutions be tabled before the debate on the respective item takes place. Therefore, the consideration on a draft resolution at the formal meeting setting, considering the L document, the sponsor of the draft resolution or decision can introduce the draft text, summarizing its content and purpose and pointing out possible spelling errors and other mistakes. At the end of the negotiation and on a resolutions, when a tentative agreement has been reached, the delegation may need to get final approval from their government. Usually, we call it, we need an approval from my capital. It is referring to the government of each member state. The draft resolution is declared to be in silent procedure for a specific time. If no member state puts forward an objection by the given deadline, the draft text is considered agreed. Therefore, the taking action procedures. It is assumed that all tabled draft resolution decision will be adopted without a vote. A vote must be requested, so it is not automatically. Usually, the PGA or chair of the meeting is informed of a vote beforehand. Countries that has interest to propose for a vote should go for the secretariat to declare that this country need to voting procedures, voting adoption to those particular resolution or decision. Decisions in the GA are taken by simple majority or by a two-thirds majority. The GA rules of procedure lists important questions requiring a two-thirds majority, such as maintenance of international peace and security, admission of new members, suspension and expulsion of members, and all budgetary questions. A majority is calculated based on the number of members present and voting. For example, casting an affirmative or negative vote. Before and after action is taken on a draft resolution or decision, member states can explain their vote or, in the case of adoption by consensus, their position. The main sponsor and the co-sponsor of a draft resolution cannot make an explanation of vote during that adoption. To the next slide, please. This is the examples of the GA resolutions, which the elements of an adopted GA resolution. You may also open the UN.org website to see the examples of the GA resolutions. Next slide. Now I'll go to the grouping and political interests. Of course, in the multilateral context, this is not only about the single country interest. This is not only about one country representative, but this is also how we can gather, build network, also organization or coalitions among countries that have some interest to attain our goals during the negotiation, as well as during the negotiation discussion on particular agenda or decision. As you may have understood how the GA conduct its business, please also pay attention to your position and interest. Meaning that you need to make sure that your country interest, your country position is already been in the table, in your position, and in the material to be presented during the discussion. In the issue of political crisis in Myanmar, for example, there might be some groupings and some interests affecting countries' positions and commitments. Each grouping has certain characteristics to approach the crisis. It is the participants' duty to explore their groupings and positions, as well as approaches to the countries. For example, in Myanmar political crisis, we have potential groupings such as ASEAN countries, European Union countries, non-aligned, OIC, China, Russia versus United States political gesture, members of the UN Security Council positions, countries included in the CSR, democratic countries, and based on the interest, of course, we need to make sure that elements such as influence over certain territory, domestic and economic interests, certain political motivation, solidarity, neighborhood, and adversary in an international court. This is important to understand on how the setting during the negotiation among those grouping and political interests. Now, the last but of course not the least is the ideal qualities of a diplomat. I have to frankly mention to all the participants in this meeting that there is no such as a standardized qualities of diplomat or high qualities of diplomat, but of course we can identify and also practice the experience of well-known diplomat as the reference to reach certain values of qualities of diplomat. There are, for example, 15 ideal qualities of a successful diplomat that is, let's say, posted by the Ambassador Robert G. Blackwell, the one of the famous U.S. diplomat, and as well as the lobbyist, that usually diplomat that has success in doing their jobs has these 15 qualities or characteristic. First, the diplomat possesses abiding interest in and possesses passion for the art and craft of diplomacy and international relations, meaning that if you don't have a passion, if you don't have a motivation raised by your own self, it is difficult to imagine that you can, really love what you do and try to do your best in attaining a diplomatic and also national interest in the negotiation among the countries and international setting. Two, diplomat need also to demonstrate an analytical temperament. You cannot be, just a plain figure. You need to, sometimes you need to also adapt the skills and the way certain or several characteristics of uh, um, performance in many settings. You cannot just one single color in your way of identifying situation or representing yourself during the negotiations. Number three, of course, you need to have a skill to write well and quickly. During the negotiation, for example, during the discussions, there are a lot of statements, there are a lot of positions that really need to be taken well in writing. You cannot just, too slow or too lazy to write anything in your paper. So bring writing materials during the negotiation, or even sometimes we also bring our recording equipment during the negotiation to to tap also to record what is really the discussion and what is the position of our colleagues, what is the position of our enemies, and as well as what is the decision of the negotiation. Number four, be verbally fluent and concise. Of course, during the conversation, during the negotiation, countries need to understand your position. You have to fluently convey the position as well as the message and interest that your countries need to be presented. You cannot just come to the meeting without any well provided materials and also talking points before the meeting. It is a required procedures for good diplomat to prepare well, write well, and offer quickly in writing, and also can fluently convey the messages. Number five, ensure meticulous attention to the detail. You need not to ignore the details. You must put the details into your paper. You must learn about the background. You must learn about the context. You must learn about your enemy's position. It is a must. Number six, be a tough and effective negotiator. And in the negotiation, of course, sometimes we have several situations that it's really tough, and the opponents also has a very tough personality. For example, tough positions. You need to have a good quality to also counter this tough position and characteristic. You just cannot give up. You don't crack under pressure. You need to win. Number seven, build long-term physical and mental stamina. Diplomat must be healthy in mind and also in physical. So you need to find a time to have workout, exercise, go around and make sure that you have good food in your meals as well as good rest. You cannot just doing a life like whatever you want and just go to the negotiation the day after, and finally you end up with nothing and give up for the negotiation. Number eight, accept dangerous assignments. In the Indonesian foreign policy for the diplomats, it's big no to say no if the country, if the government asks you to go to any particular situations, any particular countries with many and various challenges, including dangerous assignment, not only to the countries such as conflict area, but also to countries where earthquake has already been occurred sometimes, and many cases that really dangerous for diplomats. Number nine, study history. You need to know everything about history. You need to know anything about the background and also the root causes of any issue. Number 10, prudently speak your opinion to power. You need to make sure that what you speak is the real message, need to be attained, need to be reached a consensus, and as well as accepted by the meetings or by the opponent. Number 11, be loyal and truthful to your boss. Of course, it's standard. Number 12, cultivate policy resilience. Again, it's about learning. It's about make sure that you have a good certain knowledge and sufficient to what you say, to what countries policy and everything. Number 13, acquire relevant work experience. And again, don't hesitate to go to any meeting. Don't hesitate to build a network. Don't hesitate to know new things. Number 14, know your political ideology. Of course, the political ideology and the assurance of the understanding of this political ideology gives you very a good and strong modalities for you to go to the negotiation, as well as to give you a confidence to say something about your country. Number 15, take advantage of luck when you encounter it. So, best luck of all you. Try to use and optimize what you know about the skill of negotiation, and try to presenting your positions smoothly, strongly, and of course, try to reach the agreement among the participants during the simulations tomorrow. And now that was, I think, the last part of my presentations. And again, thank you very much to giving me the chance to share the characteristics and also the nature of the multilateral negotiations in the UN. And of course, thank you very much again for the organizers. And I'll give back the screen to the chair, the moderator. And thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you so much for the presentation, Mr. Ahsanul Habib. We got new knowledge on committees in the United Nations and in UNGA in particular, from how the debate takes place and how the resolution is formulated and passed through voting processes. We also have a more detailed explanation about how is the settings of negotiations and interest and the reference of certain values and qualities of a diplomat. I hope students here have listened carefully and understand clearly. And now we will open for a question and answer session. In this session, I would like to invite all students and participants to ask questions and get to know more about multilateral conference, and here is the UNGA, by raising hand, using the raise hand feature available in Zoom, or you can ask it directly through the chat box and I will read it for you. And now we're open for the students and anyone who wants to ask questions. You can actually raise your hand. So use the raise hand feature on the reaction section there, over there in the Zoom. Okay, it's also open to other participants, to the chairmen and reporter who will also be the team that will lead the simulation for tomorrow. Okay, perhaps while waiting for the questions, maybe the first questions it will come from me first, Mr. Ahsanul Habib. And my question is actually simple. So we know that simulations, we try to make it as close as possible to the, to the real General Assembly. And by that, we also ask students to research on their countries and also understand the position on the issues. My question is, what do you think if if a students, actually students here, we got a lot of students, maybe one of them or two or three delegates actually perform very well in the simulation. So we can say they know how to do moderated caucus, they know how to do unmoderated caucus, and they can also formulate a resolution. Okay, so what thing actually they can implement it in their daily life, because they actually understand the skills, they have the skills, they have the negotiation skills, and also those skills needed in UNGA. So what is the benefit for them in their daily life, Mr. Masanul Habib?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Well, this is a very good and philosophical questions on how we can, let's say, utilize the skills of the negotiations at the multilateral context. First, what we need to know is that the multilateral life, the negotiation at the United Nations, is a reflection of a country interest domestically. It is also reflections of peoples or individuals living in a community. This is about planning. This is about organizing. This is about actuating and controlling the measures to reach goals or target of the interest of each entity or individuals, either this is individuals or countries or even group of countries. In daily life, this is exactly what we have now. It is not only about your social life, but this is also about your, let's say, a formal office life. For example, if you are working at the office, if you go to the daily life, for example, if you wake up in the morning, the first thing that you need to know is what I need to do today. What is the goals that I have to reach today? This is exactly what we have in the multilateral negotiation. When we come to the meeting room, for example, I came to this room, I have this for my materials to negotiate, to propose, and to reach my goals during the negotiation. Second, I need to know what is the condition, what is the atmosphere of all participants in the room. It is exactly the same. If you go to the office, for example, or if you go to the campus or in the student's life, for example, you need to know what is the teachers today, what is the course today, what chapter that you need to learn today. Exactly. And the third one, after we know everything about the preparation, about the character, the conditions on the meeting, and then we need to think about how can we use what we have, materials, positions, colleagues in the multilateral context, for example, friendly countries or like-minded groups, and even the target that we have. We need to make sure that everything is in our hands. Then after that, we need to think the strategy on how to achieve these goals by make sure that everyone is happy by to reach that target for me, for other colleagues, for everyone, and everyone say, okay, this is a good deal. Everyone can reach the agreement. Everyone can get that what they want. In the daily life, for example, during the lunchtime, you need to go to the warung padang, for example, right? First of all, you need to think, well, I need to go to warung padang, but I don't want to go by your own self, by yourself. You need to ask colleagues to go together to have lunch, and you need to talk. which one is within your peer group that is has some appetite to go to Warung Padang that day. This is about strategy. Then we need to decide which Warung Padang is the best for today's lunch. Is it Warung Padang Sederhana? Is it Sari Bundo? It's whatever. You need to choose that. You need to negotiate to your colleagues, right? Then we go to Warung Padang. By what modalities we need to go? Then this is also about negotiation. In Warung Padang, you need to also to choose which one is very, like by your vision, is very delicious. Is it rendang? Is it sate Padang? But your colleagues probably they have different appetite. They will choose gulai, for example. You need to discuss again. It is about strategy and also negotiation. Then last one, the most important thing is when you need to pay the bill. Who will pay the bill? This is also negotiation, right? And then when we agree, oh, okay, I will pay the bill, and then you reach a deal, and deal's done, and you go back home with full stomach full, everyone happy, and think about another agenda after lunch. This is the reflection of the multilateral negotiation, exactly the same. With, of course, with the more complex variables, with the more complex atmosphere, more complex interests. Sometimes we find a very tough negotiators. Sometimes we can, also join with the enemy. Not every time enemy is our enemy. Sometimes it's becoming our friends as well. Whenever we go to particular or certain agenda, it's very life reflections in the multilateral negotiation, and of course it will teach you on life skill in your daily life. Probably that explanation can answer your questions, Pak Chair.
Thank you so much. And I like the analogy of nasi padang, yeah, and how we actually choose what we want to eat, and also who's paying. It's I like that analogy because it's something that really close to our hearts, really close to our daily life, day-to-day negotiations that you will have actually with your friends. Okay, but here we've already got Ari. So for information, Ari will be the chair for tomorrow's simulation. So he will be the chairman for tomorrow's simulation. So Ari Nugroho, please, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mas Uta. Good afternoon, Mr. Habib. So I have a questions that is quite confusing for me because as we know that the mandate for the General Assembly was actually to plenary, and one of the actions was the resolutions is not legally binding. But since you did mention on the the special sessions, especially the emergency special sessions General Assembly under the resolutions 3775A, will there be the differentials between the usual General Assembly and the special session of the General Assembly? For example, maybe the special session of General Assembly, the resolutions become legally binding, or any other differences on that both sides? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Boleh saya jawab dalam bahasa Indonesia ya?
Okay.
Boleh ya Pak Chair ya?
Okay, but we also have international students.
Karena biar saya coba sembari menjawab, saya akan menjawab dan berpikir menggali sebanyak mungkin informasi yang saya punya gitu ya.
Okay.
Karena kalau bahasa Inggris saya harus bertingkat itu menjawabnya. Di General Assembly, di Security Council, dan di berbagai badan PBB, produknya itu kan kalau dia tidak resolutions, decisions, or even sometimes in the Security Council context, for example, presidential statement. Pertanyaan paling mendasar yang sering diangkat orang adalah apakah resolutions is a legally binding instrument? Is it binding to everyone? Ya. Tidak pernah ada yang fix. People think that the resolution produced by, for example, the Security Council is more higher level bindingness on the member states. But in what application can it be really binding to the member states? General Assembly and other bodies, resolutions, for example. It was also a big question. Is it a legal instrument or is it a legal product of a body of the UN? Bukan juga. Karenanya kemudian orang seringkali mengkategorikan bahwa a resolution is only a political document, which keikutsertaan negara kepada resolusi memang itu melekat begitu negara menjadi negara pihak atau negara anggota di UN. Jadi once orang agree to the UN Charter, dia harus ikut dengan UN Charter itu. Tapi apakah kemudian ini kalau tidak ikut serta-merta ada sanksi, which also mandated by a real legal instrument, for example? Kan tidak juga, gitu ya. Gitu. Kita lihat sekarang refleksinya di Dewan Keamanan. Dewan Keamanan, apakah is it a resolution at the UNSC a legal instrument that applies fully 100% for the member state to obey, to follow, or to sometimes to reject the application of the resolution, right? The thing is that Security Council has an arm for sanction, for imposing the resolution by, for example, the Chapter 7, that everything that is obstructing international peace and security can be sanctioned by the Security Council, and also produce an imposing forces, to follow, to push that country to follow the resolution. At the GA, kamu nggak punya. General Assembly, whatever resolution that it produces, itu tidak ada armnya, tidak ada tangannya. Nah, sehingga kemudian ini yang menjadi sering diskusi, menjadi perdebatan. Ya kalau begitu apa artinya, gitu kan? Apa artinya GA resolutions itu? Nah kembali, GA resolution dan kepatuhannya adalah komitmen negara yang telah menjadi anggota PBB mengikuti mandat yang diturunkan oleh UN Charter dan semua bentuk keputusannya, ya, resolusi, decisions, and statement. Pertanyaannya ini juga akan kalau misalnya negara patuh pada resolusi, decisions atau presidential statement misalnya, ya, patuh, bagus. Tapi kalau tidak patuh, apa yang akan negara lakukan? Apa yang akan negara lakukan? Sebenarnya kalau ada satu faktor, ya, ada satu faktor yang bisa membuat resolusi atau decision itu menjadi katakanlah memiliki strong power in the implementation kepada esensi dari keputusan. Apabila tidak ada hak veto di antara 5 negara anggota tetap Dewan Keamanan. Kalau misalnya tidak ada veto, barangkali kita bisa membuat resolusi itu menjadi really binding without being an instrument, tapi menjadi binding karena ada faktor penekan dari Security Council, tetapi fakta realnya legally binding ini sering terhambat di veto di Dewan Keamanan. Nah, sekarang saya menuju ke special session. Yang membedakan sebenarnya antara regular dengan special adalah urgensi. Ya, adalah urgensi, dan urgensi itu harus dibuktikan dengan keadaan yang memang urgent. Keadaan yang memang urgent itu adalah antara lain apabila dia menyangkut the maintenance of international peace and security. Gitu. Nah, kalau regular, ya itu kan tentunya agenda sudah ditetapkan per tahun tuh. Memang agendanya agenda gelondongan kadang-kadang gitu ya. Jadi pada sesi yang sekarang diputuskan tahun depan kita akan membahas A sampai Z. Semua negara setuju, itu adopted. Jadi diadopsi menjadi agenda tahun depan. Tapi tentunya di luar agenda yang reguler ini, ya, kadang-kadang terjadi peristiwa-peristiwa penting. Ya, peristiwa penting itu whether dulu yang kita waktu saya alami itu yang beberapa kali Syria misalnya. Itu setahun bisa 2-3 kali ada special session, baik di Dewan Keamanan maupun di di General Assembly. Kemudian special session yang lain yang menjadi interest yang paling penting buat Indonesia pada saat itu adalah Palestina. Terjadinya okupasi ilegal yang terus-menerus, kemudian penyerangan tentara Israel ke Masjidil Aqsa dan sebagainya, itu ada special session requested by apakah itu country, group of country atau organisasi yang menjadi members di dalam konteksnya UN. Kalau Palestina tentu kita bersama-sama OIC ya, masuk meminta request ke Presiden GA bahwa agendanya urgent, keadaan mendesak, kami minta special session. Nah, itulah special session karena urgensinya. Special session yang lain, Myanmar. Myanmar penting juga. Kenapa buat Indonesia? It's about the survival of ASEAN. It's about the survival of maintaining peace and security di kawasan. Nah, itu juga menjadi penting buat kita. Nah, inilah yang membedakan. Karena special session itu kadang-kadang tidak bisa diprediksi tahun depan apa yang akan terjadi. Nah, karenanya di rules procedures-nya GA, kelompok negara diberi ruang untuk proposing special session. Tentu apabila menyangkut maintenance of international peace and security, itu memang ranahnya akan sangat banyak di Dewan Keamanan. Karena memang tugas Dewan Keamanan itu. Tetapi GA salah satu tugasnya juga membahas itu yang berada di bawah salah satu komitenya, yaitu Komite 1. Nah, jadi bukan berarti GA tidak boleh membahas itu karena ada DK, enggak. Nah, karena itu juga ada hubungan yang sinergi. Security Council untuk memperkuat resolusinya seringkali meminta agar bahasan juga dibawa ke GA untuk mendapatkan dukungan yang lebih luas. Sebagaimana kita ketahui kalau DK kan hanya 15 ya, 15 member states. Tapi di GA itu 193 negara. Nah, sehingga seringkali DK juga membawa isu dan agendanya to be discussed and adopted by all resolutions in the GA. In the recent years, there are some motions by other countries and proponents to bring more power to the GA. GA need to be an organ at the United Nations that has also some power to actions. Nah, posisi ini belum konsensus dan agak problematik. Mengapa? Karena untuk memberi GA power, pertama kita harus make sure bahwa UN Charter membolehkan gitu ya untuk GA beraction. Kedua, kita harus make sure rules of procedure tidak menghalangi GA untuk diberikan tenaga untuk action. Yang ketiga, yang juga berbahaya adalah political landscape. Political landscape ini adalah pengelompokan negara. Tidak bisa dipungkiri di General Assembly, di PBB, pengelompokan negara khususnya negara-negara maju dan barat itu almost mendominasi hampir semua agenda, dan mereka punya resources, capacity, tim diplomat yang lengkap to bring their interest to propose the agenda, including their own interests to be imposed as one of the standard at the United Nations. Nah, ini yang Indonesia gitu, kita harus berhati-hati Karena tidak semua agenda yang kelihatannya bagus itu punya genuine motives, punya universal agreement, but only to to keep the interest of certain countries, certain group of countries at the level of the United Nations. Mungkin itu penjelasan saya.
Yeah, terima kasih. Thank you, Bobby, because there are some international students as well, even though they might understand Indonesians, but I still have to conduct.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, but I still have to conduct this session in English. Okay. So for the next questions, we already have the queue line here. So the first one is from one of the tutors for this class. So he's actually an alumni that helped to conduct classes in practices in diplomacy. So I would like to call Rehan Shafai. You may ask your question. You're still muted.
Okay, thank you. I can't unmute earlier. So thank you for the chance. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to ask the questions. We all know that everyone have interest, especially in the council, and we have to make them quote unquote happy to create a positive diplomation. But how we can assure that they understand our interest while making effort to, for example, have a cup of coffee or go to nasi padang together, sir? So that's my questions.
That's very interesting questions, and let me say it as a very good one. It is again back to the first question asked about how we can implement the negotiation skills to the normal daily life. This is true that the United Nations consisted and composed by member states and human peoples, individuals that has a normal life like us. They of course need to find someone that they can chat off, that can sharing the idea. They have this element of humanity. They also hungry. They also thirsty. They need coffee. They need some food. And this is the way we Indonesian diplomat do during our lives as the diplomatic community in multilateral setting. This is a bit different with the bilateral setting, where in the bilateral settings, the counterparts mostly, various elements of society, not only diplomats, but mostly in the multilateral setting, there are diplomats. They represent representing the interest of a country. They need also to be, understood in terms of human approach and human interest during the negotiation and also during the interaction at the UN. Asking people to go to the coffee shop to join us with lunch, dinner is important. This is the way for us to get to know each other, to build network, to understand sometimes their position on different issues. And this is also works not only to our quote-unquote friends, but also to our enemies. Being a diplomat at the multilateral context, you don't need to put your enemies as real enemies. Sometimes, of course, we have some, emotional involved in the negotiation, but don't let this emotion distract your personal interaction and relations with others, including through asking them to go for a more social, more personal life by having coffee, by having lunch, and everything. And again, in many cases, the informal setting of negotiation, including in or through the instrument of social aspect can also solve many issues, and we can discuss many issues frankly without any limitation to discuss a very sensitive one sometimes. And the most important thing is that we can also convince them to agree on many positions at the discussion in the UN, for example. And for us, when we use this instrument by using this personal touch on the interaction, don't forget that no freelance of it. We use it for, again, to achieve our interests in many ways, to convince our opponents to our positions. We may, of course, pay bills for coffee, for lunch, but again and again, no freelance in the negotiation and also in the social life in UN.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And we've got already here some students who might be curious to ask you questions. Ahmad Habib, Ahsanul Habib. Okay, so first in line, we have Panglima Mauricio Bintana. Hello.
Well, hello, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me
Please
very
ask
well?
your question.
Okay. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, excuse me for my poor English. Hello, my name is Panglima Mauricio Bintana. Before I ask the question, I personally would like to thank to Mr. Habib for being here. You gave an insightful information to all of us. My question is regarding to the right of reply. If one of the delegation wants to use this, should we use it through speaking to all members or just submit it to the Secretary General? And my second question is, what is the key ingredients to become a diplomat at the Foreign Ministry of Indonesia? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry, what is your name again?
Panglima, sir.
Panglima. Okay,
Yes.
Panglima. Thank you very much for that. A good question. Before I answer all those two questions, I will also introduce that in this room, I have my colleagues here, Ibu Indah, Ibu Ainan, Kama, and Vienna dan Immanuel. They are joining this room, and if the chair permit, probably they can also share their opinions, their experience to the participant in this meeting. So I may have many things, but of course not all the things. They will make the presentation more complete and colorful. And for that questions, on the second question first, what is the criteria for being an Indonesian diplomat? Well, I entered this service in 1995. I joined the ministry in 1996, and then I forgot what criteria I have during this process. But I will give this question to my colleagues to answer, and I hope they will share their opinions on what is being diplomat in Indonesian Foreign Ministry and how is the criteria needed to be a good diplomat in the office. But again, of course, I have those 15 qualities. Those 15 qualities more or less is the prerequisite of the good qualities of Indonesian diplomat. You can learn about that, and of course, if we talk about it, probably we need 1-2 hours only to discuss many things related to these qualities. And then again, to the first question regarding how we proceed the right of reply. Right of reply usually given when we hear or we heard one statement coming from one entities, either this is member states or observers, or even coming from the bureau, the president, or even from the secretariat, which needed to be replied in terms of procedural or substantive part of the statement. When we have the decision to provide our right of reply, first of all, of course, we need to make sure that the right of reply is needed. Don't to rush to directly immediately respond to right of reply. Sometimes it's only about technical glitch. Sometimes it's only about the other factors. After we make sure that we need really to give our position by having right of reply, and of course the second one is that and the approval from the ambassador or even from the capital Jakarta that Indonesia needs give this right of reply based on the assessment that this is important for Indonesia to represent again, to reiterate again the position on particular issue. And after that, you need also to make sure that you have a written statement, particularly. Written statement is important to make sure that your reply is correct, is precise, and accurate. Of course, you may have also a chance to reply by verbally without any support by having this material, but sometimes it's a bit complicated, also considering the timing budget. Yeah, sometimes you cannot just answer everything by this right of reply. Procedurally, after everything has already been in table, you have already well prepared for right of reply. You just need to go to the secretariat, not the secretary general, the secretariat of the meeting. The meeting have a bureau, the chair or president, the vice chair or co-chair. You will have also the secretary of the meeting with the team as well as the rapporteur. You need to go to the secretariat, meaning that the team of the secretary to register your right of reply. You need to make sure that immediately you have a decision to deliver your reply. You need to make sure that your ROR is registered. Sometimes you just put your name and then you don't double check whether it is on the list or not. This is important. Sometimes the secretary forgot to put into the list of the right of reply. And then with the timing is end, the meeting is adjourned, and then you realize that your chance or your part to give right of reply is also in exist in these procedurals or proceedings of the meeting. And again, this is the way you do it. Do it affirmatively, do it by confidence, and make sure your right of reply is registered in the paper, in the list of the secretariat, and also given to the chair, because the chair will declare the list of this ROR or right of reply. On the second question, if the chair or moderator permit me, probably I will give the floor to my colleagues, Ibu Indah or other colleagues.
Okay, I will permit it. I will permit it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ibu Indah. If you are joining this meeting, you may have the floor, please. The question regarding the criteria or qualities of an Indonesian foreign service officer. Please, Ibu Indah. Ibu Indah is my deputy.
Thank you very much, Pak Habib, Mr. Director, and as well as all the participants for today. It is indeed a great honor for me. Apologies for wearing the mask. I know I'm still at home, but having a little cough can be a bit paranoid nowadays, so I don't want to take any chances. But anyway, again, congratulations for the convening of the event. And then I've been following the presentation by Pak Habib and some questions that have been posted as well. Happy to share a lot here. And even if Pak Habib has joined for, of course, longer than me, I just joined like probably in the last 18 years. So it is still considered medium level, yeah, Pak Habib, yeah. I mean, like, we still have a lot of seniors in the office, and at this point, we are still learning from one another. So when you talk about the criteria, it's very important. It is an interesting question, as you can come up with any answers that you have in mind? Because I think not only of being diplomat, but in many line of works, you are, let's say, required to be confident, for example, to be very communicative, to be knowledgeable, to be able to learn things at different levels, different time frame and everything. But as a diplomat, because you are pretty much dealing with the 5 main tasks of being diplomat, I don't know whether that has been discussed before, that we are, I think most of you knows that, right? Because you are learning about international relationship, you've been dealing with the international law as well. So you are negotiating, you are networking, you are reporting, you are representing. So being confident, being knowledgeable, and being communicative are indeed, let's say, an obligatory characteristics that you have to have. But other than that, I think it is important to be adaptive as well. We are dealing with a lot of dynamics when it comes to foreign policy, and especially in multilateral fora, you will see a lot of surprises, no matter how long you've been dealing with that issue. I mean, I've been privileged enough to join the multilateral fora, being part of the Kemlu team since 2007, 2008. And up until the last post in New York was actually with Pak Habib, because Pak Habib is my coordinator as well there. And even dealing with that for more than 12, 13 years does not necessarily mean that you know all the ropes. So meaning you have to learn all the time, you have to be adaptive, you have to be agile. There are a lot of changes, dynamics, adjustments that you need to take on the ground and during your assignment, in order to ensure that you fulfill your mandate or you fulfill the task being given to you. And of course, elements or values such as creativity, perseverance, and persistence, as well as integrity are also important, because you will be the representative of the country. You will be the windows of Indonesia abroad. When people think of Indonesia, then they will look at you, oh, okay, so most of Indonesians are going to speak like you, talk like you, or even dress like you. So this kind of representation of ourselves are basically portraying beyond ourselves. It goes with being Indonesians, being representative in terms of substantive issues, but also as an Indonesian itself. So perhaps Pak Habib, those are some of the elements that I can share, and I believe even the younger ones, the new blood, we usually said like Vienna or Kama and Noel might have some addition to that as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity once again.
Thank you, Indah. If any from other colleagues. But again, Chair, the criteria or good qualities of Indonesian diplomat is not, let's say, it's not a hyperbolic statement. In the Foreign Ministry, we have already been granted or passed the standard of the ISO of the recruitment. So it's internationally standardized, and also it's has certain qualities for everyone that need to join with the Foreign Ministry. And we have also a team. In every recruitment, we have also a team at the level of directors and Director General to assess and also to evaluate the recruitment of the diplomat before they entering the foreign service. And one thing I want to make sure again that being a diplomat in Indonesian foreign service is not only about smart. It's not only about you are graduated in cum laude degree with IPK 4.0, for example. More than that, what we need is someone that is has a complete personality, ready to join with a team that is at the level of global community. We're not talking about the challenges, the dynamics only on the domestic setting. We are not talking only about the challenges that we have in Southeast Asia. We're not talking only about Asia Pacific, but we need to talk about global setting, which implies that we have to ascertain capacity and capability to deal with to everyone around the globe, to deal with, for example, the US diplomat, to deal with, for example, with the African, with the Latin America, with everyone. This is a complete personality that we need, and of course, we need to build during our services in the foreign ministry. So, if you are thinking that okay, let's join with the foreign ministry, I have cum laude degree, I have 4.0 IPK, it's easy for me to join with the foreign ministry. Not necessarily like that. We need to make sure that everything is in you. You are a good one. We don't need only the smart one. We don't need only the brilliant one. Sometimes we accept 2.8 or 2.9 grade of the IPK, but they have the potential to join with a complete package of Indonesian representative abroad as a diplomat. So that is a summary of the answer of the questions regarding the criteria for being Indonesian Foreign Service officer.
Thank you, Pak Habib and Bu Indah. Now, there are more and more students wants to ask questions. Okay, so the next in line, we already have here Haidar Wardoyo. Hello, Haidar.
Hello, Mas
Yeah.
Uta.
You can ask your question.
Thank you for the change, and thank you for the presentation as well, Mr. Hasanil Habib. Discussing about the quality of a good diplomat, I underline point number 6, which is to be a tough and an effective negotiator. And my question is, how do we maintain ourselves when dealing with various countries with different interests and sometimes are the opposite of ours in the multilateral sessions? So we can deliver our interests and achieve it as well. Thank you.
This is exactly the reference that my colleague Indah has already said, that at the current setting, being a diplomat, they have an ability to be agile, to be flexible and tough, meaning that, of course, in many cases, we find that the opponents or the countries that has different interests with Indonesia, they are very tough, they are very strong. But again, please make sure that negotiation is not only about beating the other side. Sometimes it's about take and give. Sometimes it's about how to reach an agreement by a win-win solution. So the measurement of successful negotiations is not sometimes about the final end of the product of the results. We need to make sure, for example, if we go to the negotiation and we find our opponent is very tough, we need to make sure that at least you have a leveling of position, right? First, you go to this negotiation, you need to make sure that one package of interest, for example, 5 points of interest, need to be achieved, need to be agreed by the meetings or by the negotiations. But sometimes it's only an ideal situation. Sometimes we find that it's impossible to get that 5 points with a consensus. So in that case, you need to make sure that you can make a collaboration with other countries, for example. Try to find formulations that your interest can be adapted to other proposal, and you need to make a like-minded grouping collaboration to fight your interest against the other opponents. If it is again failed, please make sure you have the fallback position. Fallback position meaning that the principal standing position is there. For example, you came with five interests. You came with five goals to be discussed during the negotiation. If you cannot, just make these five points can easily be accepted by the meetings, you need to make sure among these five, which one is the least position that we have to stand. For example, you have one, keep it one. At least you have one, right? If, again, the fallback position cannot be achieved, what we do is usually just prolong the negotiation. You came to the negotiation without, the intention to make an agreement that day, because you need, again, to recalibrate the position. Probably you need more time to go to the informal setting. You need to, to collaborate to more countries. You need also sometimes in informal setting, even to approach that opponent through, the other instruments, such as to ask them to go for dining, to go for coffee and other things, and try to get the agreement outside the formal setting or outside the room, right? And finally, if you cannot find everything, you cannot just proceed with your interest to be pursued during the negotiation. The last one is that you need to give the options for the capital, for the government. We have the situation, the options is, for example, 1, 2, 3. You need to assess, evaluate in which the options that at least the government, the capital can accept. Now, in that case, usually the government will reply and giving you an instruction to choose one of those three options. If the government says, no, we cannot accept everything, we cannot accept those draft resolution with the element in it, for example, right? The option is just go for this taking position during the voting. In that case, of course, the negotiation cannot be achieved by consensus. You ask for voting and make sure that you vote for no during that the adoption of this resolution. That is the steps when we have this tough negotiation during the multilateral setting.
Okay, thank you, Pak Habib. We go to the next student. Here we have Lalu Muhammad. Lalu, you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rizal. Actually, I like to ask a question with like this. Let's say that I am a delegate from those small countries. Like, let's say
I think lost the connection. Okay, so perhaps very unfortunate. Perhaps we will back to him again after he resumed the connection. I will ask for the next questions. We have here from Ramada Valentine. So Ramada will be the chair for tomorrow's simulation. So Ramada, please, your question.
Thank you, Masuta, and thank you, Mr. Habib. It's an honor to have you here. So one of the essential part in the council is the speech, especially during the moderated caucus. Since we have the limitation of the time too, my question is how can you share the tips how to make our speech stand out during the moderated caucus? Like probably it will be helpful for all the delegates for tomorrow performance. Thank you.
Well, thank you. The tips is for the member states. First of all, that you have to make sure that you have a very well prepared statement, right? Because when you are delivering your speech, delivering your statement and interpretation, it is limited by the timing, right? Um, please make sure that the time allowance that you have during the debate is officially decided. For example, you may have the paper, the meeting document that mention about the statement or the speech or the intervention by delegates maximum 3 minutes, for example. And then usually also if there is no anything referred to the timing allocations, the chair usually mentioned or stated during the meeting directly or verbally by the chair as the chair prerogative to say that each delegate has 3 minutes for delivering the statement. Back again to the prepared statement. This is important, colleagues, that before you come to the meeting and deliver your statement, you need to find a good wording. You need to find and make sure that all elements of interest is in the statement, right? And after that, you need to choose a good words and sentence, formulated a very concise, direct, and try to also understand the common language that the UN has a practice. So you usually don't come with your daily life conversation and put it into the statement or speech. Because the UN has their own language, official and practice of language in the UN setting. After that, you put it into the formal statement. You need to practice. You need to practice that within the budget of 3 minutes, the time budget of 3 minutes is sufficient enough to read all the statement and deliver the content precisely, no rush, and clear. Otherwise, if you are not, you don't have any timing for practice, you lose your concentration, and also you don't have a good prepared statement. During the delivery, you have a situation that chair has a right to cut off any time when it's crossing the time budget. So again, practice before delivering. Practice, try to speak by yourself and read the statement. And again, last one, I think it is equally important to the preparation is that you follow the dynamics of the meeting. Sometimes in the meeting, chair has a prerogative also to cut off the time for delivering your speech. Sometimes because of the time constraint, chair changing the rules by saying with the consideration of the time limit and restriction, I will give each member states to deliver its statement within maximum 2 minutes. If you're not following the process, you cannot just adapt to this changing. You prepare for 3 minutes and then chair said that it's only 2 minutes. In that case, if you are following the discussion and the dynamics of the debate, you must quickly find a way to cut off or to make your statement shorten. You need to find which element or which sentence can also be taken out and replaced by more shortened sentence. So you can make sure that within the 2 minutes time frame, you still can deliver everything from start to the end of the statement. The other thing is that make sure that you understand the content, the essence of your statement. It is important. Otherwise, you just cannot put into a highlight into the tone of the statement. So otherwise, you just read it without without a meaning. Sometimes the audience, the other member said cannot get the essence of the delivery because you don't know what you read. So that is the tips for to make sure that you can utilize and optimize time frame for delivering the state. In many cases, if you are following the UN webcast, for example, at the meetings in New York or in Geneva, many times countries or representative of the member states has to be cut during the statement because of this time constraint, probably because of they are not practicing, because of they are not preparing well the statement. It is unfortunate if you are delivering your statement, but then the chair, the moderator, has to cut your statement. So probably that's my response to that question.
Okay, thank you, Pak Habib. But I think Bu Indah would like to add the answer.
Please, please.
Is she here?
Bu Indah, please.
Yes, I'm here. It's just I cannot unmute myself.
Oh,
I have to be permitted by the host. Anyway, thank you so much, Pak Habib, and all participants. I guess Pak Habib has mentioned all the important elements regarding the regarding having a standout statements, like being questioned here. So besides having it short, in short sentences with clear messages, with the clear context, and I think it is also important to do it genuinely. You will see the differences between statements that comes from a genuine process than the one that is just using some of the regular business as usual approach kind of statements. But I think another important things that we can add here is don't forget to do the research. When we have the statements, there are times when you are needed that you are requested to add some elements, some statistics, some background information. And if you don't have enough research on that, it will be extremely dangerous, of course, because then people can get back to you again and re-questioning what you have said before in the statement. So ensure that you do have the adequate research for your statement so that the statements will be valid, will be legitimate, and will definitely be delivered smoothly. And I think the last part is the delivery. Sometimes you have a very good draft, an excellent draft, excellent points, selling points being drafted in there, but then the delivery itself is not matching the quality of the draft. So Pak Habib is correct when he said that if it is necessary or if it is needed, then you have to take practice on that. Don't be ashamed of repeating it and doing it again and again in front of the camera, in front of your mirror, in any other occasions, or maybe asking your friends to actually listen to you and then ask them to tell what they think about the way you deliver the speech. Because believe me, in my short experience, I in many occasions I do see ambassadors who are actually reciting their draft before delivering the statements from their respective tasks. So what I'm trying to say is that even the level of ambassadors are still doing it, so meaning that you are also welcome to do so. So those are just some a minor addition, and I believe many of you are in the right path of practicing it, and then can wait to hear your statements tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Habib, and also some additional answer from Bu Indah. And actually, Lalu messaged me that he has come back. So Lalu, are you there? Okay, if not, we will proceed to the next in the line. We have.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, Oh, Lalu,
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you're audible. So
Oh,
please.
yeah. Yeah, so sorry. My internet was so terrible. I can't even turn on my camera. So Mr. Habib, actually my question is, let me say it this way. Let's say that I am a delegate from a small country like the Seychelles or the Liechtenstein, for example. You know, that type of country. You know what I mean? That these countries in real life doesn't really maintain a high profile appearance on the international stage. So here we are in the MUN. Can we actually do across the boundaries to go beyond the natural characteristic of our country, go more active, more loquacious, um, uh, and like, you know, basically more active in the MUN, you know, because in real life other countries doesn't really active to, yeah. Actually that was my question. Thank you, and sorry for my problem.
Thank you, Lalu.
Thank you very much. Very good questions, Lalu. According to my experience in Geneva and in New York, well, I can say that at least we have probably three kinds of characteristics of small countries. First, small countries with a very active and very contributive in discussions, such as, for example, countries like Singapore. They are very smart, they are very contributive and also tough in many discussions. Second one is countries like in the middle, small in the middle, and also sometimes they are not really thoughtful or productive, but they are choosing in which agenda they need to talk or they need to involve. For example, countries such as Liechtenstein or Monaco, small, they're very active in many in certain agenda, but when they are active in one agenda, they will do it in a very optimum way, maximum that they can have and contributive to attain the role of the discussion, the role of the position that they have in the discussion. Last one is a country small, but we don't know how they can contribute, but they are sometimes just following the meeting and also not exactly has clear agenda or interest during the discussion. I can mention about some countries in Central America or in South Pacific. We don't know sometimes what is their agenda and positions during the negotiation. But the most important thing is that to the question of Lalu is that being small sometimes is not handicap, is not a weak point. Being small, for example, if you don't have any pressing agenda for your country's survival matters, you can be more active in many issues without any burden. I can mention about Singapore or Vatican. I don't think they have a burden for many issues, so they can be active. They can just jump into many discussion by giving a contribution of ideas, and also to sometimes to be a middle countries or a facilitator for discussion to reach a consensus and win-win solutions during the discussion. So it's up to you, a small country. It's up to you yourselves. If you think that you don't have a really positions to pursue during the discussion in Myanmar case, for example, try to be a bridge builder, try to be a facilitator, try to contribute to discussion by giving the idea and contribution so as all those participants in the and reach at least one at least one agreement on several agenda item that is on the table. So again, I am in not I'm not in the position to to doubt that small country can contribute to the discussion of the meetings, but it's again up to you whether you need to be more productive or contribute thing to the discussion, or just just attending and not giving any idea, or trying to be a facilitator, mediator, or bridge builder to the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Pak Habib. Let's proceed to the next student who I believe very eager to ask question. We have Salwa Nabila Saputri. Hello, Salwa. Yeah, you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you for the chance. So let me introduce myself. My name is Salwa Nabila Saputri Bawa from Class A. And I want to ask about there are 15 ideal qualities of a successful diplomat. One of them is take advantage of luck when you encounter it. What if it is not successful? What will we as a diplomat should do to take advantage of any situation in the multilateral conference? Thank you.
Thank you, Sawa. I do apologize. I cannot get the questions because of the audio is not that clear. It's not clear.
Okay. And there are 15 ideal qualities of a successful diplomat. One of them is take advantage of luck when you encounter it. What if it is not successful? What will we as a diplomat should do to take advantage of any situation in the multilateral conference? Thank you.
Okay.
I think you're muted. Please. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good. I try to summarize the questions. The question is, what we do if we fail during the negotiation? Sometimes we are not, successful in the negotiation. Sometimes the interest of our country cannot be delivered and cannot be accepted by the negotiation. So what we do on that situation, and what advantage can we have to the interest of our country? Again, the negotiations in the UN is not mostly is not one of or a piece of unrelated negotiation with the context. So in that case, what we can do is that please make sure that the negotiation is a part of whole context. Sometimes the negotiation is only a small part that is really dependent to the other context that is more relevant and more important to the interest of our country. So in that case, if we fail to get the advantage of the discussions, please make sure that you have your position heard by the other, right? For example, like this. In the GA has the subsidiary bodies. For example, committee, right? In the committee 1 to committee 6, they will discuss many issues, many agendas, and you will join with this discussion and agenda. At the committee level, probably we failed to ensure that the interest of our country is taken as decision by the committee. In that case, you have another chance. Yeah, another chance is to the plenary session, when all the decision at the committee is tabled at the plenary session. Please make sure that you are engaging in the plenary session and make sure that your position is heard, and most importantly is that the position might probably be taken at the higher level, which is at the plenary. If it is cannot be taken as the the advantage of your position during the negotiation, one thing for sure that the negotiation is not stopped at this time. It can be continued at the other platform. It can be continued at the other session of the meetings. And the most important thing is that if that is happening to you, lesson learned is important. Probably you can learn why we failed to pursue our position, why is the criteria and qualities that we don't have during the negotiation, and make sure you bring this all at the next session and negotiation.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Habib. And we still have two more students who raised hand here. The first one is Prima Diani Divida. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, the Honorable Chairs, the Honorable Mr. Habib, and dear all participants. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. I would like to inquire a question. So there are several potential groups that can provide preferable solution to current issues in the world. On this occasion, we discussed the political crisis in Myanmar. As Mr. Habib mentioned before, in point 14, that being an ideal diplomat is to clearly know the ideology we have as a representative of the state. Thus, if we are delegates from a democratic country and we propose and influence Myanmar to follow in our steps as a democratic country, whether this can be a good solution or not, because we have to prudently speak our opinion into power, as we all know that the urge of Myanmar is changing form of the government military oligarchy become presidential republic, which is the fundamental values in decision, and people doubting their people in power to actualize their prosperity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. You mentioned about the democracy as the political ideology of Indonesia during the negotiation. Let me make sure that I believe that every country in Southeast Asia, except probably Brunei Darussalam, declare and claim that they are democracy. So if we talk about democracy with the Myanmaris, they will declare that they are democratic countries. If we talk, for example, more than that to the People's Republic of China, they will declare also democracy. To the North Korea, Democratic People Republic of Korea, they will also declare a democracy. But the most important thing for that is that for us, Indonesia, that we need to deliver a democratic values to be implemented in Myanmar. We need to make sure that they are following their own constitution. We need to make sure that they are protecting their own peoples. They are protecting the constitutions and also saving the people's life from the violence, from the extrajudicial and arbitrary detention, for example, and make sure that they are interacting in good faith with the other country in the region to settle, to help them to settle, to find a solution for their own problem. So in this case, the thing is that not that we have this political ideology as a democratic country and impose by pushing them to put into a symbolic terminology that they are democratic. But the most important thing is that the implementation of the values of democracy into their political, social, and economic life. So in this case, don't give up whenever you find countries that has their own preference and definitions about democracy. But please make sure with your own capacity and capability to convince them to implement the values of the ideology of democracy into their life. So this is about convincing them into practices of good faith, practices of good governance, and protection of human rights. Why I need to mention this? Because again, the negotiation in Myanmar situation is not about to impose them that they again declare that they are democratic countries. The intentions by the countries in the region, including Indonesia, is again protecting their own people based on the constitutions and the human rights. This is about values. This is about the ideological values, the political ideological values that we bring to them and to convince them to adapt into their life. Political ideology is for Indonesia is about why we are here, why we are engaging with other countries' situation, why we are contributing to the agenda. This is about, for us, this is about bigger than democracy. This is about constitutions. This is about national philosophy that is Pancasila, contributing to the peace and security, and also democracy in the region. So again, it's the way and skills and art of diplomacy. Again, don't be trapped into the terminology of democracy or political ideology, but the most important thing is that to make sure that the values is accepted, that the values is becoming a part of their life, which also in line with the spirit of democracy, with the spirit of good governance and human rights, and particularly for Myanmar as a member of ASEAN, they are also implementing the mandate that is emanating from the ASEAN Charter. I hope this is satisfying answer for your question.
Thank you, Pak Habib. And we still have two more students who would like to ask questions. Let's proceed to Salwa Lutfia. Yep, Salwa Lutfia.
Okay, good afternoon. First and foremost, thank you for the opportunity that has been given to me. Okay, I'm Salvia, and straight to my question. My question, there are two. The first one is, in General Assembly meeting, there is a consideration part that the draft resolution being introduced and considered by member states. My question are, can I get a further explanation about what exactly silence procedure is? Are they just in silence or something like that? And the second one is between these three types of negotiation that you have been mentioned before, what are the most important part leading to tabling resolution? Thank you, sir.
Well, of course, thank you, Sawa, for the questions regarding the silent procedures. Silent procedures is about silent, meaning that it's literally silent. What I need to you to understand that silent meaning that that there is no another motions or proposal during the period. The chair or the proponent of the decision or the resolution, usually after certain periods, they will think that this is time for for going forward to another level of the negotiation. They will declare after hearing, of course, after hearing, taking inputs and everything, they will declare that okay, for these draft resolutions, I have or we have already inserted all the views, input, insights into the new revised draft resolution as attached, and I will give, or the member countries give until, for example, 12 hour, 24 hour, 48 hours for silent procedures. And we or they usually will put into clear remarks about when the silent procedure is ended. When we have the silent procedure, for example, 48 hours, this is about really silent, meaning that if there is no proposal, there is no amendment, there is no new revise or questions and everything, when we reach the end of the deadline of the silent procedures, if there is no nothing, it will be considered that there is no more inputs, and then we can go for adoption of the resolutions or decision, right? But if during the period of the silent procedures, there is one country or group of country sending a questions, sending a revised amendment, or even try to come with a new draft version, so it's going to be declared as silent procedures is broken, meaning that it's going to be a new level of discussions, and the chair or the pen holder or the sponsor of the resolution will inform all member states that one country, group of country has already proposed one input to the resolution with amendment on this part, and then we can declare that the silent procedure is broken, and then the chair or proponent usually the chair will come with a new steps or new proceedings of how we can treat this document, whether this is a new negotiation is started, or sometimes if it is exhausted, for example, because of the negotiation, informal discussion has already been exhaustive. It's taken, for example, 3 months to negotiate one draft decision, and finally it's broken by a proposal for another country. Sometimes the proponent or sponsor can also submit the situation to the chair and asking the chair the wisdom of the chair on how the member state or the committee can proceed with this new situation. It is important. Sometimes the chair or the facilitators of the negotiation just give up because they are exhaustive, and finally it's end up with some countries broken the period of silent procedures, and they have already and everything. So finally, it's going to the chair to decide on how the committee, the organization, or the discussion, negotiation can be proceeded further. So that is actually the situation when we have this silent procedure. On the which one is more important during the process of tabling a draft or negotiation? I think every part is important. Why I mentioned, I highlighted this statement because of, sometimes we have already starting informal consultation. We have already discussed fully with the engagement and involvement of member states. We have already make sure that all amendment inputs, insights, proposal is taken in a good way, in appropriate manner in the resolution, and we make sure, right? We make sure that everything's will go smoothly, and it's going to be adopted by a consensus. Please make sure again that the situation is not finished yet until everything is finished. So it means that every step of negotiation has to be followed. We have many cases, for example, we have a resolutions, it's discussed at the committee and then brought up to the plenary session with consensus everyone. Finally, at the plenary session at the General Assembly, we think that the resolution is nothing. It's not a controversial decision or resolution. But when the chair thinks that the president of GA thinks that he or she can just ask for the agreement, for a consensus to that resolution, there is always a possibility one country asks for voting. meaning that consensus is broken. Consensus cannot be reached. So at the end part of the adoption, everyone can also give a situation that is not accepted by everyone, meaning that you have to follow until the end of this discussion, until you make sure that it is adopted, until you make sure that there is no, for example, right of reply again. So I cannot just cherry pick or pinpoint which one is important, because in my experience, if you are engaging in one process of negotiation, you have to follow it from start to the end, from the beginning to the end part of the negotiation. This is important. Even though you don't have any strong position on the negotiation, for example, like small countries like Seychelles, but this is important because of every part of negotiation will give a contribution to the process of standard setting and consensus on certain standard and values at the UN context. And again, I remind you that please don't just ignore every part of negotiation. Every part will give to the adoption of the decision and resolution, and it also will give some effect to your position in the country or the region, and also to the global context.
Okay, let's go back. Thank you so much, Habib. And we have our last students who will ask questions through raise hands. And Faisal, please you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you for the great opportunity, Mr. Uta. And thank you for the great information about the General Assembly, Mr. Habib. At this session, maybe I really curious about the draft resolution and also dilemma a little bit, because tomorrow that the discussion will focus about Myanmar's political crisis. If I am as a delegate of Myanmar or played a role as a country of Myanmar at that time, we said that the commit make a draft resolution. But at the same time, my country is a pro-junta and we doesn't accept the draft resolution. Can we say like that? Because I mentioned some point, correct me if I'm wrong, that resolution is just a political document, and anyone that was in the UN Charter means have to accept everything about the resolution. Then if now in this position that I'm not accepting the resolution, can I just pass away and doesn't accept the resolution? Because I'm still dilemma about the draft resolution, because you said like that we have to follow that some country can push the country to follow the resolution. That makes me, it's so dilemma. How can I accept this like that? That's maybe my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good question also. The answer is very simple. Yes, you can. Meaning, of course, when you are in the position that the junta in Myanmar cannot accept the resolution, first of all, make sure that the position of junta is heard during the negotiation. This is important because every discussion and documents, as well as products of the meetings, is going to be recorded, is going to be officially documented as the UN documents. So you need to make sure that your position is heard, your position is recorded in the official document of the UN. Second one is true that when we have a resolution, it's ideally applied to every member states. It's not selective. It's becoming an universal document or resolution. Of course, sometimes countries, they have this, this notes, this difficulty to accept every element in the resolution. The way we do usually in a normal setting, we try to negotiate to delete or to propose our position in the draft, right? But in many cases, we fail, for example, to make sure that every element, every paragraph in the resolution is in line with Indonesia's interest or with countries' interests such as Myanmar. In that case, usually countries can declare during the adoption of the meeting by first, for example, if you are not in the position to break the consensus, you can mention it during your statement that you have a difficulty, certain element, certain reference in the resolution because this is contrary to the constitution, contrary to the interests of the country, as well as the other reasons, right? The other way is that after you make a statement, you can also declare during the adoptions that you have some reservation. You need to mention about which part of the resolution that you are reserved, that you are in a very difficult position to accept those paragraphs, for example. You need to mention it as your reservation to the resolution. By having a reservation, meaning that you are not obliged to follow, to obey the mandate of those reserved paragraph or elements of the resolution or decision. Last one, after it's a normal setting, right? But sometimes we country is totally cannot join, is totally cannot accept, is totally becoming in counterproductive position if we follow the decision or resolution. Usually country will at the beginning of opening the adoption, those country can make a statement that your country, Myanmar, for example, is disassociate, meaning that you are not having any relation, you are not having any particular linkage or interest to the adoption, to the resolution. You make a statement that Myanmar is disassociate with the process, with the resolution, and for that, Myanmar is not having a responsibility to follow this resolution. In some cases, I can give you one example for the adoption of resolution on the PRK. Every year in New York, we have a traditional resolution on the situation of human rights in the PRK, the PR of Korea. They are attending the opening part, but then they will finally coming at the adoption session and giving a statement that this country is dissociating with the resolution, and they will leave the table, they will leave the desk or sitting allocated, designated for the PRK. So during the adoption of the resolution, they are not in the table. That's the way countries expressing the rejection of the discussion of a particular decision, particular agenda, or adoption of one resolution. But again, the ideal setting of producing a resolution or consensus in the UN is a consensus one. As wide as possible participation of countries is a good one, is a good resolution. A good resolution is a consensus one whenever member states or participants can support without any reservation, without any difficulty to accept those resolutions. So in this case, Myanmar situation, it's up to you again to how you need to choose your diplomatic skills to engage with the discussions, and finally to express your position during the adoption of the voting in the simulation. But again, it's a part of Myanmar, not only to single option to choose. You may have many options to choose and engage, probably starting from the beginning of the discussions, the informal conversation, and as well as to deliver your statement at the informal until at the adoption at the plenary session. It's up to you. It's of course good opportunity to represent the real situation on the position of Myanmar, including the matters that is relevant to the political ideology of Myanmar in the setting of the ASEAN, as well as the context of the UNGA. So that's my response.
Okay, thank you, Pak Habib. So actually, we still have one more question from the chat. So there are actually two, but the question from Khalida Mariam, I believe it's already answered through discussions. And so I would like to read the last question from Muhammad Rifki. Assalamualaikum, I am Muhammad Rifki. I want to ask Mr. Habib, being a diplomat is a big responsibility. Because we have to be representatives to express opinions on an issue. And whatever diplomats say may affect the life of the country. What happens if a diplomat fails to understand in communication, and how diplomats can improve that image?
Okay, good question. Being a diplomat is not an easy job. The failure, the mistake is zero tolerance in the standard of Indonesian diplomat. We have to learn the skill of communication. We have to learn the skill to understand of the setting as well as whole context of any situations. Communication is part of instruments of a good diplomat. Communications is not only about speaking on something. Communication in diplomatic skills is delivering a message with an appropriate way and to ensure that the main elements of message is also delivered. So this is important to ensure that you are in the position that failure and mistake is no option. But of course, that is the ideal one. Sometimes we have a situation that we need to communicate or deliver the statement in a very short notice. In that case, again, being a diplomat, you have to learn anything. You have to do research whenever you need it or not. You need to read. You need to ask your colleagues. You need to consult with your boss. We need to have a network and communication with other ministries and agencies in your country. And of course, a channel of communication with the capitals, meaning with the bosses, with the foreign minister, and other colleagues in Jakarta, for example, right? By, putting that practice as a habit, it will protect you from a possibility to making a mistake in communicating the interest of your country to the counterpart or to the multilateral forum. I myself think that in many cases in the UN setting, we rarely find a case when we fail to communicate correctly to Indonesian position. Um, Many cases, what we have is not a diplomat that deliver a wrong statement or inappropriate message to the counterpart or to the forum, but what we have is that try to keep or to improve the Indonesian image, not because of diplomat saying something inappropriate or improper, but because of the domestic stakeholders conveying as a message which is wrong, which is untrue, or bias, for example, or groundless. Uh, in the information technology that we have now, when everyone can access TV, can access social media, internet, everything, what is happening in Indonesia, including the statement or communication or publication by the government officials, can easily be quoted, can easily be translated, whether this is right or wrong, into a certain context. For the diplomat, what we do is to try to understand what is the context. If it is wrong, we try to make it, let's say, make it proper and good in particular context. But if it is clearly a violation of rules, violations of law, we need to make sure by trying to to communicate with capital that any violations or breaking or rule breaking is not immune. There is no impunity to any violations of rule, violations of human rights in Indonesia. Now, and this is the task of the diplomat, to keep the image of Indonesia abroad is protected or even improved. This is not easy because with the 270 something million Indonesian population with 34 provinces, with the engagement of stakeholders in Indonesia in many events, incidents, forum, activities, and as democratic countries, everything can happen domestically. So this is the challenge that we have abroad, not because of diplomat has miscommunicate the message, but mostly on what we have domestically. If there is a case that we miscommunicate the message that the capital has and need to be delivered to the target of the audience in abroad, what we do is immediately, right after the failure happened, immediately you need to make a correction, to make a new version of statement by stating that we have a correction, new update, new improvement, new information and data that coming from capital or from the other sources, and put it into a press release, put it into a press statement, and as well as put it into your statement during the negotiation. I'm sorry if I cannot answer correctly on your questions, because in my experience, I have rarely find a case when we have an Indonesian diplomat have a situation that we are miscommunicating the message. In many cases, other countries, of course, there are some cases, but I don't know how they can improve their standing in the front of the forum. But again, uh, the quick response to make a revision of a failure or mistake or miscommunication is needed. Don't hesitate to come to the public with press statement, with press conference, that you have a new improvisation of the data, new update, and new revision of the information and message. Probably that's the situation that usually we have in the UN and multilateral forum.
Okay, thank you so much, Pak Habib. Okay, actually, we are reaching the end of our session today, and I would like to thank Mr. Ahsanul Habib for a very fruitful presentations that we have already had. It was very interesting, and I believe that we can learn many things today. Perhaps just a little bit, Pak Habib, perhaps you can give a closing statement, one or two words to these students who will have the simulation tomorrow. Pak Habib.
Of course, Chair. Thank you very much again. First of all, I'm really honored to be part in this session. Of course, not every details and part of the negotiation at the UN can be presented during the 2-3 hours meeting, and particularly because this is a platform of virtual. Sometimes I have a difficulty to to express my knowledge into the virtual setting. Usually, we attended a physical simulation and briefing before the moon in several universities before the pandemic. But of course, again, this is important for you and also for us, to share our experience, to knowledge to the students of the simulation tomorrow. Second one is that please try to imagine and also to engage fully with the model of United Nations simulation tomorrow. It is important not only, for example, you will become someday a diplomat, but it is also important for you to, to improve your life skill, not only into the diplomatic setting, but also your life, whether this is in the government officials at the other agencies or at the business sectors, or even at the organization, at the civil society organization someday. The last one is that I will also remind you that the future challenge is very, very, very tough. And also without preparation from the beginning, from the students, from the young generations, probably many of you will join also with the foreign service. Please be ready to face the tough future. We don't know how the global political, economic, and social setting in 10 or 20 years ahead. But with the pandemic, it also gives us that the future is unpredicted. In a normal situation, Indonesia is not, a level of ASEAN countries anymore. If you talk about ASEAN, other ASEAN countries is left behind Indonesia in terms of diplomatic activities at the global setting. According to my engagement with the UN community, Indonesia is considered is really G20 member. We are involving in many cases, in many issues agenda that needs the skill and capacity of a good diplomat. Please be prepared to join with the foreign service and try to be at the same level as the good quality as the diplomat from the developed countries, from the country that has a good interest in the UN, and please become those part of this community. And again, I hope that the simulation can be successful, and also appreciate for the organizer of the meeting. And again, thank you very much. Stay healthy, stay strong. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahsanul Habib, for a very concise and detailed training today and very fruitful discussion. We hope to see you again in the next occasion. All right, for the students who are attending to the session, please fill the presence list as distributed by our Diplomacy Lab assistant, Salsa, there in the chat box over there in the left side of your Zoom. And thank you so much for coming today. And I would like also to thank everyone. I would like to thank the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who have already come here and also share with us a lot of new knowledge. And I would like also to thank the committee and also the students who already come here. And thank you so much. And I would like to remind students to come tomorrow to the Zoom meeting right in time. So don't be late. And please use your base suits for tomorrow's simulation and be prepared for tomorrow's agenda. So I am Muhammad Rizky Utama as the session chair for this session. I'm signing off from Universitas Islam Indonesia in Yogyakarta. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, and see you tomorrow. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih, Mas Rizky. Thank you for everything. Sukses. Bye.
Bye.